just a job. You know, they're not going to do their best work. They're not going to do their best work. But you've got to be patient with their growth. Don't be impatient with their growth. Like how we grow is a day at a time. You know, they're not where you want them to be because you're in a different awareness. But you always show them, always praise them. Even when they screw up, say, I'm so glad you screwed up because this is a learning opportunity. This is a great learning opportunity. You know, but always tell them what we're working on. Like, I am always communicating to my team what we're working on. I'm like, oh my God, I got this idea. I'm communicating to our clients what I'm working on. Like, I don't hold back because it becomes more relatable. And tell them where we're falling short. This is where our gaps are. This is where our gaps are. You know, just like you guys, I told Mikey this last week. I said, I want you to identify to me what our hidden patterns are that we keep doing just out of not thinking. Like, I'm always doing this. Like, I hold me at the highest standard of why things are not going the way I want them to go, for the things that aren't, right? Like, I never blame my team, ever. But from this month onwards, this is what we're doing. We're operating at a higher level, but this has to be communicated. If it is not communicated, no one's going to buy in. And if you don't have buy-in, you're just going to get frustrated as a leader. But whose responsibility is the vision? It's always the leaders. And then it's the leaders under you. Like, you got to communicate. I want you, everything you do, share the vision. Share the vision. You should be communicating your vision every single week. Every single week, you're constantly planting the vision in their mind. Constantly. So, and then you've got to show them the standard is non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable. And if you're not willing to live this standard, you're not going to be here. You're not going to be here. Now, I'm going to tell you this, even with your current teams, not everybody is going to be with you 2 years from now. But you're going to attract even better people for the people that fall off. So they need to know that you care. You know, one of my favorite quotes is by Maya Angelou. She says, people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. So you could be honest with them and do it in a loving way, and they're going to know you have their back. But you've got to constantly talk to them. I said this yesterday about their success. I talked about it with goals yesterday. You got to get to know what their goals are. What do they want? What do they want? You know, but you've got to be honest. For you to get that, you've got to get better. You've got to get better here. When you put the team first, you build an empire. When you put yourself first, you're going to tank your business. It's always about the team. That's why I said yesterday, who is the greatest superstar in the team? It's always we. It's always we. So you've got to let them know what you want to see in them. Like, what do you want to see in them? Like, JR's filming right now. I'm always talking to him. Always. Him and I spend a lot of time together. And I always tell him this one thing, like, do not let anybody limit your creativity. I don't want to let anyone. I don't give a shit if what we do fails miserably. But you want to empower people to make decisions. You never want to limit people. But you want to really let them know what you see in them. You know, I could look at JR, and I told him this over the last few months, his identity has changed so much. It has changed so much, and it's so awesome for me to see. It is so awesome for me to see. Like, he'll call me and he'll be like, you know, I'm listening to the Science of Getting Rich. Can you tell me what this means? He never did that before. So now I got him as a learner. You know, I got him asking the right questions, right? So that tells me something. You know, but when you get in the spirit with each person, there's magic that's going to happen. So the question is, are you in the spirit with your key people? And obviously you can't get in the spirit with everyone at once. I'm aware of that. But look at your key people first that's really going to move the needle. You know, and talk about the big game. What is the 10-year game you're playing? What is the 10-year game? You know, once they know we're in it for the long haul, they're not going to be always starting and stopping. They're going to know they have security and they can grow within your company. And so not just for 90 days. Now, I always set 90-day goals. I told you that. But I have a big vision that is much bigger than the 90-day vision. And so you have to learn how to say no, and this is where I'm not awesome at. Because I always want to help people. But I'm getting better in some ways. In some ways, like if I'm honest, because like if somebody asks me something, I'm always say, yeah, I can help you. Now I say no more than I've ever said no. But you have to learn how to say no. And you've got to have a filter. Is this going to help me to where I want to go? Because what is our greatest resource? Time. Yeah, time is our greatest resource. Money can always be replenished. Time can't. So we've got to make sure no one gets in your way on your sprints. Like I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Like nobody can get a hold of me. And Monica will text me. She goes, you're on Do Not Disturb. Yeah, I'm aware. I'm the one who put it there. like I'll look at it like 2 hours later. And like you don't need to tell me I'm on Do Not Disturb. I'm aware. But I don't let anybody get in there, during my own sprints that I'm doing. So you've got to eliminate what's not important. What is not important? You got to really define that. What am I doing that's not moving the needle? That's not an important. That's just task. That's just a distraction. And then you've got to value your time. If you value your time, they're going to value your time. Okay? Like people always want to put stuff on my schedule. So I'm retraining them. I don't want more stuff on my schedule. I have enough on my schedule. And I'm telling them, if it's not going to move the needle, don't put it on my schedule. Don't put it on my schedule. I messaged Nicole last week. I said, you're working me way too hard. I told her that. And I said, it has to stop. And we had a conversation about it. And then she gave me all her reasons. I don't care about the reasons. I just need it to stop. So I'm communicating effectively my expectations, right? It doesn't work. So we created a new program that hopefully Nicole is going to have my back on and follow through with. So because they love putting stuff on my schedule, right? And I don't look at my schedule a week out. Like I'm a day-to-day person. I never go further than a day, ever with my schedule. So I'll have clients be like, oh, we're talking next Thursday. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. Like I don't know. I'm just focused on the day. I'm so trained about winning the day, so I never go further than that. But like, if I have all this stuff on my schedule that's not moving the needle, I can't help more people. So you guys have your own way of helping people in the greatest way. But if you're doing just busy, monotonous work that's not moving it, you got to start setting boundaries. So accountability in your company can never fade. If it fades, growth stops. Like you have to have not just you holding people accountable, you have to have your team holding your team accountable. Iron sharpens iron. Okay? Like I always empower my team to call everybody out. Say, remember what we committed to? And so that's identity though. Like that's a work in progress always because people are different identities. Because most people don't want to make people feel bad. But what accountability is never about making people feel bad. All it is about honoring our commitments as a group, as a team. Okay? So how to communicate is by setting the tone with expectations and standards. You want to learn the sandwich method in communication. Like if I was talking to Ann and Stacy, and I'm like, Ann, I didn't like something Ann did. I'd say, Ann, I got to tell you, I love how you're showing up. However, we have an opportunity here that I want to show you one of your gaps. But here's the great part. After I tell her gap, I'll be honest, and I'll say, here's the great part. Once you get this, you're going to even be better. So you always start with a positive. You get to the meat of what you want to communicate, and then you end with a positive. Why? Because you always want people feeling better by the end of a communication. One of my philosophies is make everyone your ally. Make everybody your ally. You never know when you're going to need somebody. So you always want to make everybody your ally. I'm teaching it to my son right now. Because, what does he call it? Yeah, he always says he's advocating. I'm like, you're not advocating. You're like calling out your teachers. right? I'm like, this is not advocating. Like, he's not doing it in a great way. You know, and I'm like, you want to make everybody your ally, and guess what? He's going to a new private school for high school. Who does he need to sign his letters of recommendation? His teachers. You know, so I'm telling him, you better start learning this because you're not advocating, you know. But we want to make everybody our ally. Everyone our ally. You know, like, I keep in touch with clients that haven't worked with me for 9 months. And I'll just talk to them and just check in with them. I had one just shared me a big win, you know, that she had. And then she's like, I'm going to come back to world-class wealth. You know, like, I always keep in touch with people. You know, if I think about you, you're going to hear from me. Like, I always text. You know, like, I'll be like, just thinking of you. You never know. And I'm not doing it to sell them. I genuinely care. You know, that's a form of communication. So always collaborate on solution. Go over ideas, and I'll be like, I'll stop. I'll be like eavesdropping. Then I'll be in the middle of it, and I'll stop. I'll go, okay, can I give you guys a suggestion? Let's start with the outcome first before you guys come up with ideas. Let's start with the outcome first. You know, so if we start with the outcome first, the ideas for everybody is going to come from that outcome, right? And always remember, everyone's doing the best they can. So give everybody grace, including yourself. Grace, not excuses, okay? Now, the standard is the standard is the standard is the standard. You've got to define it, but you've got to define it loud and clear. It's got to be loud and clear. Like, if you are in a brick and mortar shop, let's say you're not working from home, your standard should be on a frame, like, that is so big. So they see it every time they walk in the office. And everywhere you go, the standard is there. Reinforce it in team meetings. If it's not met, you have to address it immediately. That's what people don't do. They see a problem, because you feel a problem well before it comes, right? But if you don't attack it right away, you're the problem. You just made the problem bigger, okay? So when you guys feel a problem, let's knock it out right away. Now, give your team permission to fail. Give your team permission to give you ideas. The team doesn't wait for you. They have the right to call someone who doesn't follow the standard. Like, give them that permission. But you have to do it in a team meeting so no one feels attacked. Like, I'm giving everybody, I want everyone, if they're not operating from our standard, call people out. Call them out. Okay? Now, lead with your own action. Your example is going to be greater than anything. Like, you're going to show them how to act on ideas. You're going to show them what to do and what not to do. Okay? Like, leadership, I'm telling you, if you guys really put time in this, it's going to scale your income, it's going to scale your productivity, and it's going to scale your business significantly. But most people, like, I was teaching leadership in my Transform event. You watched everyone's energy go down. Everyone's energy, because they don't want to look at it. They do not. Would you agree, Yossi? Jason was there. Everyone's energy, because no one wants to look at it. You know, my cousin was in the room, and he goes, you really hit me in the stomach. Like, everything you said about leadership, I'm doing the exact opposite. You know, but when we don't beat ourselves up about it and start looking at it, then you're going to change it. You already know who has a good attitude towards leadership and who has a bad attitude. Life is leadership. So model at the top. Be the example. Instead of brushing it off, show the team that it's always your fault. I must not have communicated effectively. And you also show them that you're fixing it going forward. You're fixing it going forward. You know, I have a rule in my team, never tell me sorry, because you don't have anything to be sorry about. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, everything's fixable, right? So you never have to apologize. But teach constructive feedback. You guys got to remember, everything is just feedback. If you personalize it, it's your problem. Okay, everyone says they want to be told the truth until somebody tells you the truth, right? Until somebody tells you the truth, I wish they didn't tell me that, right? So show them always that you believe in them. Always that you believe in them. And always, do you know how you show them you believe in them? Because you hold them accountable. You hold them accountable. You know, it's like kids, right? when you discipline your kids, they feel love, right? Then you see the kids who never get disciplined, they become adults, and they're like, I wish I would have been disciplined, right? But it's the same thing with your team. You always hold them accountable. That's a form of love. Because why? It's easier not to hold them accountable, right? It takes a lot of energy to hold people accountable, so it's easier not to. So when you do, they know that you care. And celebrate their wins. Celebrate their sales. When someone practices a core value, celebrate it. Establish celebration in your culture. Like, celebrate not just the win, celebrate they went for something and it didn't work. Like yesterday we put a post on social media, we had the wrong date. We had 2025 instead of 2026, but I love the post. I love the post. I was telling my wife it. And I'm like, mistakes happen. And then I get these clients, you have the wrong date? Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, I get it, right? So I promise you, if you start celebrating the wins and the losses, you're gonna create such a culture. Once again, I keep telling you guys different ways, but you have to be willing to lose. You have to learn how to lose to win big. My mentor taught me that. He taught me how to lose. He taught me how to lose with grace. But he taught me how to lose being on offense. And he never said it in words, but I just watched him. So you learn so much by being in the spirit with somebody. And then I started winning, but I can look back and I won because I was willing to lose. Like David was asking me, he goes, when you guys did this, he was talking about my wife and I, he goes, were you reckless? I go, I don't think so. I mean, maybe. I said, I don't know. I just knew where we were going. My vision drove everything, so it wasn't reckless. Because I always tell clients, make sure your needs are fulfilled. If your needs aren't fulfilled, you're going to be in lacking limitation, right? But to me, reckless is somebody who doesn't follow through. It's not somebody who risks. So we were never reckless. We were just on offense. We were just always on offense, because our back was against the wall. All your backs have been against the wall at some point, right? Everybody, right? So you know what it feels like. But the people who win don't stop. They keep persisting when their back's against the wall. And so what are you doing weekly in communication? How do you communicate with your team? I communicate with everybody every week. Everybody is getting a touch point from me because I told you proximity is rewarded more than anything. I will do weekly meetings. Sometimes I don't do weekly meetings, and I will always talk to people. I'm always touching base with people every week. Every week. But it's important for everyone to understand and value their positions. So they feel valued and they will work harder. Because some people don't understand the value. They think the stars, quote unquote, are the only ones that get valued. But they're helping the stars. So they're a bigger star than the star. Because they're the first point of contact, right? So you got to understand, but if you don't communicate it, they're not going to feel valued. And if they don't feel valued, they're going to shrink. So we never want anyone to shrink. So how to get more from your team is always positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, but it's always you're doing great. Even if you give them negative reinforcement, you tell them the truth, but you're like, look, this can get better. Do you know how many times I failed? Do you know how many times I made that mistake? I've been there, so it's not that big of a deal. It is not that big of a deal. So what happens when you build a team that owns their standard and leads themselves? What do you think is going to happen? They're going to thrive. They're going to thrive. See, Jonathan, I was talking to him, if I was leading his company in sales, because he was talking to me about sales, I'd be like, I want every one of you to know. Right now, everyone's earning between 1 and 150. We're going to have somebody who's going to earn 400 next year. We're going to have the 100s that are going to go to 2. I'd be painting that vision. I'd be constantly painting that vision. I was telling Monica about a month ago. It's the last month before Christmas, and I'm like, will you help me? I want to reinvent you in the next month. I want you to wake up by Christmas Day and you're a new Monica. She goes, I'd love that. She goes, what are you thinking? I said, I don't know yet. Let me figure it out. You know? And then it caused me to do a framework on one of our podcasts on how to reinvent yourself by the end of the year. You know, so she caused me, the idea came in my mind first, then it went through her, then I'm like, I'm going to show it to everybody. You know, like, that's because I'm thinking about Monica. I'm thinking about the people. I'm not thinking about myself. See, if I can raise my team, I'm always going to be taken care of. Like, I don't have to worry about that. Like, I'm always taken care of if I take care of my people. So, but this is what's going to happen. They anticipate the needs without being told. You're building leaders within your organization, and your voice expands, and you don't have to be the voice. And you're not the only one that's always having to communicate. Okay? You're not the only one that always has to communicate. That's what happens. So how much leverage would that be? How much leverage would that be? So what happens when you reinforce the wrong things accidentally? So you beat somebody up, right? You make them feel like crap. You didn't mean it. You might have had a bad day, right? You might have had a bad morning. But they don't know that. They don't know that. And so what happens is if you ignore someone who made a sale, but cut corners, you're reinforcing that their results matter more than values. You know, this is a very important thing, okay? A couple years ago, I had somebody selling for us, and he was selling the wrong way, so I fired him. You know, and I told him, like, I didn't fire him on the spot. I gave him a couple chances, but he kept cutting corners, right? And I said, you can't be here anymore. So I reinforced it. But if you don't reinforce it just because they made a sale, your brand is going to be really devalued, really devalued. Every time you ignore something, it's going to come back. That's why we attack problems right when they happen. So you always get what you tolerate. So here's a good question to ask. What am I tolerating in my business right now? What am I tolerating? What am I tolerating? Okay? Now, it's not fun to be held accountable, but if you want to be wealthy and successful, accountability is a must. Accountability is a must. Accountability is the greatest self-insurance policy. When you get good at holding yourself accountable, it's game over. Like, I used to have somebody hold me accountable all the time. Now I don't need anyone to hold me accountable. Like, for years, it's been like 10 years since I've needed that, right? But in the beginning, you need to, so you learn what it feels like to be accountable. So there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I have all these WhatsApp groups. I create them for accountability for the people in the community. And they're like sending, like, I get like 300 messages a day. Like, I'll read them though. Like, I want to read them because I want to see what they're doing. And then if I get a chance, every now and again, I'll put a video in there. You know, but it keeps my community together because, once again, accountability is huge. So it's always the micro. We talked about it this morning. Reinforce the small wins. If you don't acknowledge the small wins, they won't feel seen. Okay, they're not going to feel seen. You have to look for them as a leader, especially when people are struggling, especially when they're having a hard time. Like, really acknowledge what they're doing well. And you have to notice everybody. The more you do that, the better they will perform. The more you give them energy, you give them attention, the better they're going to perform. Now, how do you get big wins? Stacking small wins. That's how you guys are going to get big wins. You're stacking a bunch of small wins. You're just stacking win, 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 win. You know, that's where the big wins are going to happen. And it happens so fast. Jonathan, I think about you. We're at World Class Wealth. I met with you at the end of the event, and I gave you direction of exactly what to do with your team. You went home, did it. Then you called me, you're like, oh my God, it changed the whole game, right? Think about that. One suggestion, he does it, this is what happens. That's why it's so important to do it right away, okay? Do it right away. What did you notice was the biggest change?
You just don't focus on the little problems anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of talking about the same thing that already has been dealt with, but it's still in the conversation.
Yeah.
Just get it out.
Yeah.
Just focus on the good things that are happening. That was the biggest share.
Yeah. No, it changes the game. You know, but like I said, for the solopreneurs in here, for the people who are working, you know, in a job, it's the same thing. You just do it for yourself. You know, what were my small wins? You know, and if you tolerate toxic behavior, you hurt yourself in the long run because you're killing your culture. You know, I told somebody in this room, you got to fire this person. I told them it yesterday. You can't accept toxicity in your culture. Like, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill your company. It's going to kill, other people are going to leave. You know, and remember this, you never fire anybody. They always fire themselves. I've never fired anyone. They always fire themselves. Now, the only way to grow the company to a big scale is with your team. It's with your team. That's the only way you're going to grow it. And you're like, well, I don't want a big team. That's fine, okay? You know, but I'm telling you, the scale is going to be about leadership. It's going to be about leadership. Because, let's say I tell Bob, imagine there were 10 Bobs running around. We get 24 hours a day, now you multiply it by 24, right? Of course he's going to scale. He's like, Arash, I don't want 10. I said, fine, how many do you want? Like, what is your goal? The goal determines how big our team's going to be, okay? Like, Jessica, you have a $60 million goal, so of course you got to put attention on leadership, right? But all you have to do is do the math, let the data do it. If I have a big goal, like Jessica does, for 60 million, then if I get my team much better, of course I'm going to scale, right? So when the team makes a mistake, praise it. Teach it. What I mean by teach it is say, what were you thinking? Like, what were you thinking? I want to know your thought process of what was going on. And then this is what I want you to learn from this. This is how I would have handled this. This is how I would have handled this. You know, and if any of you are helping your team sell like Jonathan does, I told him what I would do. Every time I help my team sell, we'll get off the call and I'll say, what did you learn? And then they'll be like, well, you said a lot of the similar things, but I didn't say them in the way you said them. And your confidence was this. Why am I doing that? I'm teaching them what I'm doing so they can do it. Okay? If I just do it and don't teach them, there's no value. So you always want to teach through a mistake. So use it as a learning opportunity, but you never punish them, because the minute you punish them for a mistake, they're going to always never try. Okay? And not everything needs to be fixed right now. You need to process it. Now, I'm terrible at this because I do everything right away. Like, I don't know how, because I'll tell Mikey, I'll be like, I'm going to wait a day. And then like 20 minutes later, I contact the person. Like, I don't know how to do that. But for some people, everybody thinks differently, right? So if we use everything as a blessing or a lesson, we're going to really thrive in leadership. Instead of like, why did you do this? Oh my God, you did this. And your tone has to be really good. Because if I'm yelling at Ann, her ego is going to fire and going to be in defense mode. But if I'm talking to Ann calmly, like, tell me what you were thinking. Okay, it's very different, right? It's very different. So your tone, just like in selling, it transfers energy. So, and you always have, this is what most people don't want to do. They want to bury it under the rug. You've got to address poor performance. You never allow that. You never tolerate that. If you tolerate it, it becomes the norm. It becomes the norm. If you avoid tough conversations with underperformers, others will notice and they're going to underperform. So we always have to understand what is our standard of performance, and you want to hold everybody to that standard. Your performance will always drop to match the lowest common denominator. You're as strong as your weakest link. So you want to bring, this year, you want to bring your lowest people up. You want to bring your middle to the top. You want to bring your top to excellence. So that's how you're going to grow your company. Now, we talked about core values, but do you show in the language of your team? Like, I could say my core values, but are we living them? Our language will tell us if we're living them. Okay? They're going to tell us if we really care about the person. Okay? But what is the best framework for leadership? When one of us wins, all of us wins. When one of us loses, all of us lose. We're all in it together. We don't blame. And then the power is in the team, no lone rangers. Okay? People that are isolated are people that are attached. Okay? So you bring everybody involved in the wins. You bring everybody involved in the gaps, not just one person. Okay? And so winning as a team means every voice matters, and you got to speak up and step out. If I see somebody in my company who doesn't value everyone's voice, it bothers me. Like, I address it one-on-one. I address it. That is never okay for me. And I'm always asking this question, and I encourage you to ask this question. What do you need from me? What do you need that can help you excel? I'm always asking this question to my team. You know, I'm always asking. You know, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable acting on ideas? Do you feel micromanaged? Everyone knows I don't micromanage, so I know it's not coming from me, but doesn't mean they don't feel micromanaged in the business. So I want to know, because guess who can communicate it if they are? You know, because some people may be doing it and they don't even know they're doing it, right? So your success fuels the team. Bring your best every day. You've got to be the best every day. Like, I'm going to be my best. You know, if you're your best, you're going to bring out their best. And when you do it, your company is going to thrive. But you're doing it, if your company is at your best, your customers are going to be at your best, and you're going to start attracting your ideal clients over and over again. I mean, it's not fun when you attract people you know you can help, but that are not your ideal client, right? But what happens is, as you change your company's programming, as you change your leadership, that's all you're going to attract is your company's standard. And so what legacy are you leaving behind? You have to empower your team. You have to trust them. You have to, and I always say, so-and-so, I trust you explicitly, right? Explicitly. And so who in your team are you building to be the next you? I want you to duplicate yourself. I want you, there's somebody in your team right now that isn't a superstar yet, but can be, right? But have you identified them? Are you building them up? Are you building them up? You know, like, I've been working with Nicole forever. Nicole had no experience. I had no experience. And the way we came together is she wanted to help me because she saw I was being buried, you know? And then I started developing her. I don't know how long we've been together, but it seems like 30 years. It's not 30 years, but that's what it seems like, you know? But I worked with her. I remember she'd call me crying, and I'd be like, okay, stop crying. Let's work on this. Like, Nicole's like Stacy. She's a crier, okay? She's like, I'm just crying because I'm mad, okay? And I'd be like, that's okay. And I just kept working with her. I wouldn't trade her for anybody in this world. Anybody in this world I would never trade Nicole for, you know? But we put a lot of currency in each other. And that's why I don't even need to say something she knows. You know, I don't need to say anything she knows. And I never will ever question her work ethic. Ever. So who are you doing that with? You're not going to get immediate results. It's not like we got it immediately, but you've got to trust the long game, not the short game, okay? See, I want my team to learn everything I know. I want to give them everything I know. And they can be better than me. I hope they're better than me. I want them to be better than me. You know, I was working with a real high performer, and he left his company, and he said, the leader always limited me. And I said, what a mistake. What a mistake. And it happens all the time because of ego. People don't leave just to leave. They leave because they've outgrown an environment. So never limit your people. If you're limiting them, it's a mirror of you. You're limited within yourself. So I will promise you, you're going to lose. You're going to lose in the long game, superstars. Like I look at Garrett. Garrett just left his company. They did that to him. I would love Garrett to be in my company. Like he's a dog. He's got this work ethic. He's got this positive mental attitude. Like I think they're crazy. I don't know them, but I think they're crazy to do it that way. But why did he leave? Because he was limited, right? So when we look at leadership and we look at your leadership, so I want you to tell me, what is the one area that you can improve the most? Because if we don't define this, we're not going to work on it, right? So what is that one area that you can really leverage the most? Okay? Carlos, what about you?
Pouring into people, pouring into my team.
Pouring into your team.
Giving them proximity to me.
Okay, so how many people are on your team?
Basically 2 right now.
2?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Plus all his team.
okay, so you've got to put energy in. You've got to set standards. Like if Jason is working with you, right? I would give Jason my expectations. Yeah, you never assume. You think he knows. Has he spoken them back to you? And, Jason, what's his expectations? Well, that's one, but what are the core expectations he has?
Well, in terms of standards, it's essentially no excuses, no fluff.
Okay, this needs to be better. Do you see this?
Yeah.
You said he knows them. He doesn't know them.
We'll get that fixed.
Yeah, but this is the thing. We always are assuming. See, if Jason is working, because I know how good of a guy Jason is, right? He's at the top of the chart, right? But if Jason is working, I want him to know what my expectations are. I want to empower him too, right? I want to empower him so he brings out his genius, but he's got that no good. But you just said he knew him. So where else are you assuming, right? Where else? Never assume. Communicate. That's the opportunity there, right? But when you pour into your team, I promise you, your team is going to flourish. And that's why you got to play the long game, not the short game. If you're playing the long game, but building them up, and vice versa, like Jason should give you feedback too of what he needs from you, right? It's got to be a two-way street. So that's what you want to look at. What about for you, Bob?
I'm thinking consistent communication of the wins.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that stood out to me is actually tracking the wins. First of all, I just take the wins as it's what I should be doing. So I've had communication with my team recently, and there was one of my team members who's like directly right there. I thought and was aware of the wins. Just said we're doing really well, and she says we are. She was surprised. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So communicating the wins more effectively. Pointing them out in some cases.
Yeah, no, it's very important. I think of JR, maybe a month ago. I was talking to him and my wife. We were having a meeting. And I said, what is the result you're going for? And he gave me this vague answer. And I said, he ran college track, right? And I said, when you were running track, did you have a goal? He goes, every meet I had a goal. I said, what's different about this? And I said, everything is a scoreboard. So the intent is the scoreboard, right? Well, it shifted in him. He said, now I can never unhear what you just told me. So it changed the game for him. And it was a conversation, same energy as I'm doing right now. I'm just asking a lot of questions, right? We have to have a scoreboard. That's why I gave Garrett a scoreboard in front of him. I said 50 sales by the end of the year. And then he crushed it, right? So you've got to look and make sure you are in it with your team because you're assuming they know something that they may not know. Okay? Everything is driven by results. Results always tell us the truth. Results never lie. I'm not saying be attached by them, but let them be a leverage point. Let them be feedback. It's like if you're wanting to lose weight, you get on the scale every day. The scale is telling us the input, right? That's what it's telling us. Well, our bank account is telling us the input, right? Our sales are telling us the input. Our culture is telling us the input, no different. But if we're not communicating it, we're not going to understand it. So every day, there's an input that's creating the output. So we let data drive everything. Data is telling us the story. Data is telling us if we're coasting. You know, data is telling us if we're killing ourselves working too many hours. You know, data is telling us that, well, I just work 14 hours. Well, no one told you to do that. Why'd you do that? Because that's how you feel productive, right? That's how people feel productive. The more hours I work, that means I'm productive. Not true. Not true at all. It's how you work, with what energy you work, with what mindset you work, with what skill set you work with, where you're going to get a lot done in less time. You know, I was sharing this story. Like, I always have these there's clients in 3 different categories, okay? I have the one client that goes all in, like no matter what. Garrett would be an example of that. Because when I first met him, he said, I was a mess, Arash. You know, and I'm like, I don't really care. Like, it's only where you're going now. He did exactly what I told him. Within a year, changed his whole life. Then I have another client. They go all in once a month. Once a month. They go all in once a month. What it costs that client, it's going to take them 10 years to create what Garrett did in 6 months, right? Then I have another client who's in and out, starting and stopping, in and out. They go all in once a week. You know, that's going to take that client 8 years, you know? But why? All we have to do is get consistent every day. So you guys have got to get this with leadership, with your goals, with your dreams, with everything. It's what we do every day that's going to matter. That's how you're going to create the life you want. That's how you're going to create the experiences. Because then I could go to you and I'll be like, let's say Cheryl created the best year of her life financially, okay? Yeah, there we go, accept that. Created the best year of her life financially, but she never had any experiences. Then I would say to Cheryl, what are you working so hard for? Like, you're not enjoying it. Like, you guys have to enjoy the wins, not prioritize work over you. Like, it's just a goal. You're bigger than the goal. So most people make the goal bigger than them. That's why they never achieve their goals, right? You're the goal. Like, you're the most important part of the goal. That's why the standards are more important than the goals. So if you put you way above the goal, that doesn't mean you're not working awesome at the goal, achieving activities and the identity-based behaviors, but you're making you the priority. We're always the solution. We're always the problem. We're always the reason we do something. We're always the reason we don't do something. By what we tolerate and what inspires us, right? So that's what I want you guys to think about. Am I making sense?
Yes.
See, you guys are no different than any room I teach it. I'm just teaching it slowly here, okay? You guys have to prioritize you, number 1. You have to prioritize leadership, number 2. You have to prioritize selling. Go ahead.
I've heard you say in the past that one of the standards for your team is that there's no hiding. You also don't want hiding from us.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that when you're onboarding them, you tell them, like, a standard here is there's no hiding. When you see that they might be hiding, what is the conversation that you have? I'm sure it's the sandwich too, but like, what is the language that you use?
I would love to see you stop holding back. That's what I say. I never attack anybody. Like, I don't attack any of my clients. I don't attack people who work with me, you know? But I'll ask questions. Like, and I'll say to them, Stacy, like, for where you want to go, behavior is never going to allow you to get there. You know, so if you just ask really good questions, you're going to get really good answers. So then you're like, I am holding back? They don't even know they're holding back, right? So now you're coming from your awareness. It's so obvious when someone's holding back. It's so, like, for me, and maybe because I've been doing this so long, it's so easy for me to read people, but it's so obvious when someone's holding back. But that's a story that they have from the past. They're not holding back in this present moment because they want to hold back. It's just a conditioned behavior. So it's how we see ourselves. That's why people hold back. But holding back is always keeping you away from living the way you want to live. You know, so like that's what I would tell you. Like last week, you're like, I was distracted. And I told you, I started asking you questions, right? So I started saying, why are you distracted? You know, I said it yesterday. You guys got to burn this in your mind. Nothing fails like success. Nothing fails like success. You have to earn it every day by the person you become. That's why we never chase it. It chases us if we're doing it the right way. That's why we're detached. But to be detached, you got to trust in your want. You got to understand the laws. If you don't understand the laws, you're going to be coming from the physical side. The more emotionally connected we're on the right frequency is where we're going to create the goal faster. Like Einstein says, just match the frequency of what you want. It's impossible not to get the good you desire. Well, how do you get to that frequency? With your imagination. With the future self framework, that's how you get to that frequency and stay there. And that's why when people tell me they don't study regularly, I'm like, they're never going to get to where they want to go until they start studying regularly. But it takes one moment to start studying regularly. You have to prioritize it. Oh, I forgot about accepting and rejecting. Okay, so now do it. See, where we are right now does not matter. It's only where we're going. So you could be dealing with adversity right now, and it's going to be okay, when you handle it. If you don't handle it, it's going to keep showing up.
Hiding as an identity. The reason I'm asking about this is because I have somebody who hides, which I didn't realize when I hired them, but now I see that they hide. That's an identity problem, right?
Yeah.
And a confidence problem.
Yep, both. Yeah, but you got to make them feel safe. I always tell the story about Monica. When she first came to work with me, I gave her some rules. I said, no hiding. I said, if you hide, you're never going to work with me. Why? Because I had these other women who work with me, and they were a disaster for me. You know, like, and I was like, I didn't want to repeat that. So I was like, okay, I've got to communicate effectively of what I'm looking for, right? So Monica used to be a hider. She'd tell you this. I'm not talking behind her back. She would tell you that. But now she doesn't hide ever because I gave her that. You know, like hiding is shrinking. So like when you have a adversity, I'm not even going to say a problem, I'm going to say adversity. That's when we have to bulletproof our attitude up. We got to rise, not fall. Most people have adversity, they retreat, they fall. Why? Because at a young age, they were trained to avoid. So you could teach an adult who was a great avoider to never avoid again by communicating it effectively and not attacking them. No one wants to be attacked. You know, I'm sure you guys have all been attacked at some point, right? Like somebody talked to you disrespectfully. You didn't feel good, right? So, you know, when you get attacked, you don't forget it, right? That's why the people hide, because they didn't like it. That's why people have a bad relationship with leadership. They think leaders are dictators, a lot of people, right? Well, their person wasn't a leader, they were a dictator. It's not what a leader is. And every one of you is a leader. Leadership is not about title. I had somebody ask me, what is your title? I said, I don't have a title. And then Mikey came in, she's like, well, sir, you're the owner of the company. I don't even look at me like that. Like I look at everybody, we're doing it together. You know, and people think when I get this title is all ego. You know, and if somebody in my company wants a title, they can have it. I don't care about the titles. Like, I always am like, just write what title you want, I'll give it to you. Like, if that makes you feel better, have it. Like, I just don't care about titles. I never have. Like, I was vice president of sales in my old life, and then they wanted to give me a new title. My mentor wanted me to give me a new title because he's like, you're my number 2, you know, like, behind me. And I said, I don't want another title. I never introduced myself, hey, this is Arash, Vice President of Sales. I never introduced myself like that. I haven't had a business card in 20 years. Like, I don't need them, you know? I'm not telling you guys not to have them. I just don't. Like, it's not what I need, you know? And so, because impact is much more important. And that's why I'm telling you, if you don't retreat from this, but if you own it, every one of you is going to make your lives a lot easier. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. Holding your people accountable, communicating, holding the standard. But you can't just hold the standard because you have it. It's like what Carlos said. Like, you got to enforce it. You know, I want Jason to know exactly what Carlos is, more than his income. Like, I want to be like, these are how many leads you're getting me that we're doing together. This is what we're doing. This is how many appointments. That's what he has to know. Because if Jason doesn't know it, now we're marketing with blindfold on. Do you see that? So we want to get like really to the granular. That's why I said the micro is what creates the macro. Okay? All right, Jill, you've been quiet over there, so I'm going to put you out here. So tell me what your biggest breakthrough was today.
Well, actually, as you were just talking now, I was thinking back to a conversation you had in All in 90 on Friday.
Uh-huh.
You were speaking to the young woman who, she was wanting to enter the competition.
Yep.
But she prefaced it as, I want to prove all of these people who didn't believe in me wrong.
Yeah.
You flipped the script of that as, I would rather prove all the people that believed in me right.
Yeah.
And it triggered a memory for me, a story. You talked about stories this morning at breakfast. And one of the stories I had was, in high school, I was voted most likely to succeed.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is over 40 years ago, but I'm carrying that with me. And I think it's because I'm afraid to fail.
Uh-huh.
And so my objective now is, I want to prove all of those people who have
Right.
that confidence in me right.
That's great.
So that's kind of what you triggered.
Yeah. I never put any energy on my haters. I don't put any energy on them. Like, I really don't even think about them. You know? I only focus on the people who believe in me. Like, that's what motivates me. Like, my clients, my family, my team. You know, like the people who believe in me. You know, I'm looking at proving them right, not proving people wrong. Like, why would I put energy on low people? You know? And the truth is, as you guys are rising, you're going to have haters. That's the truth. But people only hate on people doing great shit. So you should use it as a badge of honor, right? So, but if you put your energy on the good, not the bad, now you're coming from the positive side of your personality, not the negative. You know, I have people who are like, I'm going to prove them so wrong. I'm like, go ahead. You know, I choose to do it another way. It's all philosophy, though, right? Like, I don't choose to put negative. Like, the only thing I put negative on are my sports teams. I mean, that's the only area that I put negative on. You know, like, you know, but everywhere else, I'm just looking like, how can I bulletproof this? How can I use this as a leverage? How can I, like, even if I'm not creating 1 month a great result, I'm like, there's an opportunity here. I'm always looking at it. I'm always looking at, like, this didn't happen by accident. Like, everything comes from me. Like, that's my dominant idea. Like, everything comes from me, not to me. So when you understand that, that's how you can get better. That's how you can get bigger ideas. And, like, I can look at all of you. You guys are all at different points. All of you are. All of you are at very different points. But I don't believe in one greater than the other. Like, I know if you do what I tell you, you're going to freaking soar. You're going to soar. I've seen people. I had this one guy. He was earning $800 a month. And he sold his car to come get coached by me. You know, 3 years later, he's now earning $40,000 a month. But I never didn't believe in him any less, because the human spirit is wild. Like, once somebody has desire, it's a done deal. That's why you can never judge. Like, I never judge people on my team. I don't judge my clients. I just hold the image of who they can be, because if somebody judged me where I was, I don't know where I'd be today. You know, you need to believe in other people's beliefs before you get it yourself. That's why I could tell every single one of you, like Carlos says $1 million, I already know he's going to do it. I know he's going to do it. And like the first time I talked to Carlos, we had a very rocky first conversation. You know, I was explicitly honest with him. because I didn't like what he was telling me. And he said, that's why I need to work with you. I need somebody like you in my life. And now, Carlos and I have a great relationship and a friendship. Like I know about his family. I help him through things that have nothing to do with business, right? But you're going to have somebody great in your life, especially a mentor, when they care about you. But the stronger the relationship is the more you work together. That's when the relationship gets stronger, and that's when the mentor can help you the most. I always say this, like the people who work with me over a long period of time consistently get the best results, right? Then the people who come and then they tap out after 6 months, that's a big mistake. Because I coach based on where they're willing to receive the message. Like with you guys, I can go deeper right now because there's 20 of you, right? So I can go deeper with this, but for you, like in me, I'm like no different than this. Like mentorship, I invest all the time, and the people who invest here and don't continue, it's a mistake. Because they're going to spend the money anyway, but the deeper we can go, the further they're going to go. Does that make sense? Like I told Jill this last year. I was like, Jill, I don't love the way you're making decisions. And she didn't see it, but this year she's changed the way she's made decisions, and she's had all these accolades, with her writing, and she's sending me the coolest shit on text message. It's so great to see, but her next version of her is going to be better. Like I stretch people for one reason only. I want to show them a version of them they've never seen before. You haven't even met the version that's coming out next year, but it's coming out. And I will tell you that. That's why I said yesterday, you got to kill yourself, your old self, thousands of times throughout a life. The faster you guys kill off your old self, the faster you're going to meet your new self. So if you want to look at your goals, say, I got to kill off my old self. I got to stop being that person. That's how fast you're going to meet the new person. That's what's going to happen. So that's why if I'm ever stretching you or pushing you, just know I'm introducing you because I see a different version of you, and I want you to see that version. But you can only see it by stop doing the behaviors that you used to do. Okay? That's what you're going to do. Make sense? Go ahead.
Earlier you mentioned something, you said spiritual contract.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little
Well,
bit and what is a good example?
Well, we all have spiritual contracts, right? A spiritual contract is something we haven't released, so it's like a spider web connecting us to a thing. Like you'll see it with people like a father and son who don't have a great relationship. So that's a spiritual contract until they break that contract and communicate and heal it, right? So like I used to have a spiritual contract with money. Like I didn't have a great relationship with money. I had to heal my money wounds in order to do what I'm doing now, right? So I had to cut that spiritual contract and create a new contract. So we all have them. I'm 49, so like I have all these different ones. That's why when you start understanding and de-webbing yourself from it, you're going to free yourself up. There was somebody I was talking to this morning. I can't remember who it was, but I was telling them, I want to know where your lack and limitation is, because that tells me what's in your heart. And until I heal those wounds, the next version of you can't come out. Why? Because that is a program, and there's a virus on top of it. We got to let that virus out, so we can open the space and be available for what we want. So that's what you want to look at. So there's some form for all of you. They're different. That there's some form you're attached to a story of some lack and limitation, right? There's some. You want to release that, because then that becomes a wound, and we want to heal those wounds because the wound is in our heart. And if it's in our heart, we can't attract what we want. But you don't want to obsess about it. You want to just create the new model. So you identify and expose it, get rid of it, and now you focus on who you're going to be. It's a very quick process. This isn't a long process. Like, Stacy, give me one form of scarcity.
Money.
Okay, money. So once we heal that, she's going to even attract more. She's already healing it. She's just judging it. Right? Because all I have to do is look at her results one year to the next around money, because that's the area. For some people, it could be self-worth. For some people, it could be relationship to leadership. For some people, they don't see themselves as sales professionals, right? So there's all these things, but what does the goal demand? You know, the more you purify your heart so by exposing it and not beating yourself up, the more you can grow. Am I making sense?
Yes.
So that's what you want to look at. Why is somebody holding back? They don't think they're good enough. They think this person's better, and their ego will be like, no, I don't think that. Trust me, your actions speak louder than your words. Your energy speaks louder, right? So why did I used to hold back? Because I was unaware. When I started changing, it was so funny. Like, I didn't even notice it. My wife noticed it. She's like, do you notice how different people are treating you now? And I'm like, oh, I guess I never picked that up. And like, your resonance changes. Your resonance automatically changes, so you tell the world, you better respect me. Because as you respect you, the world is going to respect you. Until you respect you, no one's going to respect you, right? Until you believe in you, the world is not going to believe in you. But I tell you, we all have the same opportunity every day. Like, today could be the day your life never, ever goes back. Like, it was one moment for me. That's why I'm always telling people it's one decision. It's the unknown. You guys got to get more in the unknown than the known. And you're going to leave here. You're going to say you're going to do it right now. But you got to do it today. What's one thing you could do today to go in the unknown? And then you do it again tomorrow. One thing. Now you're making a habit of going to the unknown. Okay? And that's where it happens. Make sense? All right, good. I think we're ready for lunch. So David?